Hey, we're back here this afternoon with some more market commentary and a corporate update. Today we are going to hear from Newcore Gold. Newcore trades on the TSX Venture with the symbol NCAU. They also have an OTCQX listing with the symbol NCAUF for all the traders and investors in the US. We typically hear from President and CEO Luke Alexander, but we're going to switch things up a little bit today and hear from Chairman Mr. Doug Forster. Doug, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Trevor. Appreciate you having me on the program.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I mean, not just because we're going to talk a lot about Newcore and the Enchi project, but you have just a long, successful track record with junior mining exploration and also financing. You were founder, president, and CEO of Newmarket Gold, leading the way to that acquisition by Kirkland Lake back in 2016. I thought we'd maybe start off with there because we're starting to see a lot more M&A hit the market recently, like real recently, like in the last week and a half. Are we finding a seasonality for mergers and acquisitions?
I think we are, Trevor. I mean, with this pullback in the gold price, I think that does create opportunity for M&A. People are looking at things, assets, quality management teams that are basically on sale right now. And, it's at plus $1,700 gold price. The miners are all making great margin, making good money for shareholders. And the explorers such as Newcore, I mean, we love a $1,700 gold price. We're just starting a PEA, preliminary economic assessment, on our 100% owned Enchi project. And I'm sure Luke Alexander, CEO, has talked about that with you. And, the $1,700 gold price works very, very nicely for the asset that we're developing there at Enchi. So I think you're going to see M&A continue to pop up. We had a couple announcements this morning, actually. I'm sure you saw those, and I think that's going to continue. So, and that's been my track record over the last 3 decades, has been to, find undervalued assets, acquire them, raise capital, make sure that management and the directors have a large position in the company, like Newcore, where we own 32% of the equity, which is, pretty unusual for a junior exploration company. And then advance the project, de-risk the project, keep it well financed, and ultimately hand it off to the miners that really want to mine these assets, these quality assets. So that's the path we've been in the past, and certainly for Newcore, that's a possibility. But right now, we just have so much value to create with the Enchi Gold Project. We're really just getting started.
You have some history here with the Enchi project in Ghana. Can you kind of walk us around, like when you were first introduced to Enchi, what you've done with the project, before Newcore, and then kind of walk us through where it is now?
Yeah, my association with the Enchi project started in 2010, Trevor, with an associated company as a Newcore, wasn't Newcore at the time. And we signed a joint venture in 2010 with Redback Mining. And we were going to earn a 49% interest in Enchi by spending $5 million over 2 years. Redback had the 200,000 ounce producer just north of us at Enchi, the Chirano gold mine, and they also had the Tassius mine in Mauritania. Just after we signed that JV, they were taken over by Kinross in a $7 billion transaction. So then skip ahead to 2014, that company did some drilling on the project, did some geophysics, did some more groundwork, actually spent that $5 million. And then in 2014, Pinecrest Resources, which is now Newcore, completed a transaction with that company whereby we took over a then 51% interest in the Enchi Gold Project. And at that time, now Kinross, because they took over Redback, had a 49% interest. And in 2016, Newcore tabled a PEA on a 700,000 ounce gold resource, and that was when gold was at 1,300. So that's why we're redoing the resource now, Trevor, because now we have 1.2 million ounces in a pit, and of course we're in a much higher gold price environment. And then what we did with the at that time, we also were able to eventually. Kinross had about a 17% interest in the company. We owned 100%. This is when Newcore sort of consolidated the interests back in 2014. And then most recently, when Luke Alexander came in as CEO, he was able to transfer that 70% interest that Kinross owned in equity We moved that into institutional hands. That was in June of last year. So Kinross no longer has a direct interest in the project or an equity interest. And we were very pleased to be able to move them out of their equity position and into strong hands, institutional hands in London, in Canada, the US, and Hong Kong. So now we're at a point where we own 100% of the project. As I said, management owns 32% of the equity in Newcore. We've tabled a new resource, which was a significant, I think a 70% increase from the prior resource in a pit, 1.22 million ounces at 0.72 grams per ton gold. Of course, this is all oxide or predominantly oxide, so we're looking at a heap leach scenario. And now, as I'm sure Luke has told you, we've launched into a 58,000 meter drill program. We're about halfway through, and this is a resource extension and discovery drill program. This belt of rocks is extremely ripe for discovery, and we're really excited about moving this project ahead now that we have it consolidated, have a great shareholder base, and well financed.
Throughout the history of whoever was managing the project, over the last 10, 20 years, and some of these names continue to still be involved. And I'm just thinking, you mentioned Pinecrest. I mean, wasn't George Salamis the CEO of that company during the day?
He was at one time, and he's on the board of directors of Newcore.
Yeah.
Of course, George is a very successful entrepreneur in our business in the mining sector, and we're really pleased to have him. So yes, he's been associated with the asset as long as I have been, actually, Trevor. So great resource, great breadth of knowledge, George on the board, and also the management team with Greg Smith. Greg Smith's been the VP exploration on this project, since 2010. So he knows this project better than anyone else. He knows the potential of the project. And again, we see we've got 1.2 million ounces in a pit now, but we really believe that's just scratching the surface in terms of the resource potential, the ultimate resource potential of the asset.
Can you talk about forming I mean, not just the management, but the board itself? I mean, you got some heavy hitters. You mentioned George, but also, Ryan King's on. He's a nice young fella. I know him, obviously working with Calibre Mining in Nicaragua. He's done really well. Douglas Hurst is obviously a familiar name throughout the industry as well. Can you talk about what it took to get, was it difficult to get this core group of onto the board to help really push Newcore and Enchi into, new horizons here?
Trevor, it wasn't hard because we know all these people very, very well. They're very
Yeah.
successful in the mining sector. Basically, we took a lot of the board and some of the management team, especially the board from Newmarket Gold, that you mentioned that we merged with in 2016. We merged with Kirkland Lake in a $1 billion transaction. The board members on Newcore are very similar to the board members in Newmarket. So that's what it was very easy. We knew them well. We know they're all value-added board members. So we were really pleased that Doug Hurst and Ryan King and George Salamis and others joined up with us on Newcore. And of course, we're really pleased that in just less than a year ago, we were able to recruit Luke Alexander as our CEO. Luke has a very strong record, as I'm sure you're aware, in the capital markets. And that's a big part of what a CEO does, is obviously the capital markets part of our strategy. And also bringing in Mal Karwaska, in addition to Greg Smith and Danny Lee, the CFO. And we got a really strong management team at Newcore. So strong board, strong management team, and that's what you need to make a company successful. And again, management and the board is fully aligned with shareholders because we own 32% of the equity. So management wins, board wins when shareholders win. And we think that's the proper way to construct a public junior explorer.
And there continues to be some insider buying over the last couple of months as well, so that's been nice to see. Can you comment on the activity there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we own 32% of the company, the management, the board, but we're always wanting to support both in the market and also in financing. So in the last financing we did, the management team and many of the board members all participated in that. And again, skin in the game, supporting the stock is just a part of the job, but it's an important part of the job. And we certainly see that at Newcore. We want to be large owners because we believe we're just getting started, and the value creation ahead we think is significant.
As far as exploration, you mentioned the 58,000 meter drilling program leading up to the updated PEA, which will come down later this year. but really, Enchi, you have these main deposits that are pretty well known. Yeah, there's finding more mineralization in gold within those kind of boundaries, but there's also some pretty interesting gaps between those known deposits that have seen some early exploration and positive drill results as well. Um, you know, for as long as you've been watching Enchi, is it I guess kind of curious, is it like, how exciting is it after 20 years to finally see some of these deposits kind of starting, really filling those gaps?
Well, it's really exciting. I mean, we're in elephant country here in Ghana, Trevor. I mean, we've got Anglo Gold with Obuasi at 60 plus 60 million ounces, Goldfields at Tarkwa with 25 million ounces. That's in Ghana. And then in our own belt of rocks, the Enchi area, we've got 40 kilometers of this Bibiani shear zone, which is a major regional structure. So for in a 100-kilometer belt here, this gold belt, this 100-kilometer gold belt, where we have 40 kilometers of that belt, you've got about 15 million ounces to find to date. To our west, we know we're on the border with Cote d'Ivoire. To our west, you have Endeavour with the Afema project, which has an historic resource of 2 million ounces, and that's going to grow. Then you have us with 1.2 million, and we're just starting to scratch the surface there, really. And then 50 kilometers northeast of us, you've got the Toronto mine, which is a 5 million ounce deposit. And then north of there, you've got the Bibiani mine, past producer, which is another 5 million ounce deposit. So this 100-kilometer long gold district, we own 40 kilometers of that structure. We've got over 100 kilometers of splays off that Bibiani shear zone. It's ripe for discovery. And we've only drilled, the average resource depth, the drilling depth through our current 1.2 million ounce resource is about 50 meters. We're now drilling holes at around 200 meters depth. We know that the Toronto mine, just the north of us on the same structure with the same geology, 5 million ounce deposit, they're now mining 1.1 kilometers at depth. It's a million operation now. But like Enchi, Toronto started with a series of 13 open pit oxide deposits. We've got 3 deposits so far in Boyne, Suwam, and Nyam, but we've got some excellent exploration opportunities that are not in the resource that we're drilling now. And you've seen some of these excellent results from Kojina Hill, from Kwakukrom, and we're going to be getting to another deposit target called Aradi here in this current drill program. So a large belt, productive belt, where do you go to find more gold? You go to where it's already been found. And we're really excited about the depth extension at Enchi of this mineral system, as well as the oxide heap leach style mineralization is still not fully delineated at all. And that's what we're doing in this current drill program.
What is the status with Toronto, as far as kind of reserves left and life of mine? Have you heard
Got
anything?
2 or 3 years left. I think it started in 2000. Oh, I can't remember. It's been going for 10 or 12 years, certainly. It was a perpetual 200,000 ounce producer at low cost. Currently, I think last year it produced 160,000 ounces. So it is getting towards the closer end of the mine life. Although, I think Kinross was going to call it quits there a few years ago. They keep finding more ore. As I said, it started as a oxide 13 open pits and along this Bibiani shear zone and splays, and now they're down 1.1 kilometers in a conventional milling operation. So you keep finding more ore there, and that's what we expect at Enchi as well. So they're still mining away. They're loving that long-term producer in Ghana for them, and of course they have the Tasiast mine in Mauritania, but Toronto's been a real core asset for that company for a long time since they acquired it from Redback.
Well, the costs of mining are relatively really low compared to other jurisdictions throughout the world there in Ghana,
They
isn't
are
it?
because the grades are good. The grades are
Yeah.
very, very good. And obviously in terms of miners or explorationists, we don't control the gold price. Gold is certainly a hedge against currency debasement. So we think the gold price is going to be strong in the future, but it's obviously our job as producers and explorers to find assets and delineate ore that makes sense in any gold price environment. And that's what we're doing where we are, because we've got some very good grade. You've seen some recent results from near surface oxide style mineralization. And then we're going to be drilling deeper at Enchi here soon to look at what the depth extent is at the Enchi system. Can it be like the Toronto system just to the north that's down 1.1 kilometers now? We'll find out, and that's going to happen through the drill program. But certainly, the gold price, it's been obviously disappointing the last off $100 over the last few months. But the reality is, this currency debasement continues. I mean, I think in 2020, the U.S. printed 3.4 trillion of new currency, or about 18% of the total supply U.S. dollars. So talk about debasement. I mean, that's what's happening in the U.S. That's what's happening in other currencies around the world. So, we believe in the gold price, and we don't know when it will go higher. But our job as explorationists at Newcore is to delineate mineralization that makes sense in any gold price environment.
Well, and I asked you about the cost of mining up at Toronto just to lead in to ask you about the cost of discovery at Enchi. I mean, I know drilling, from what Luke has described to us and the listeners, is drilling is pretty dang cheap compared to other drilling. Say if you were drilling in high altitude someplace up in North America per se. But have you taken a look of when you go and you're putting in these target areas and testing the target areas in between the deposits, really what the cost is of making new potential increase in resource discoveries at Enchi? Have you done any math on that front?
Yeah, we're looking at $10-11 an ounce in terms of resource discovery at Enchi. So very, 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 very inexpensive work. It can be higher than that, but the reason it's so reasonable in terms of discovery and working in Ghana. Ghana is the largest gold producer in Africa, 7th largest in the world. So the infrastructure in Ghana is excellent, and we take advantage of that. Our company that drills for us have their main depot just a 4-hour drive away, so it's all road accessible, and so it's a really strong place to work, and that means lower costs. And of course, when you have a big database like we have at Enchi, from when Redback drilled, it was about 52,000 meters of drilling in the past, before Pinecrest and now Newcore got involved. And now we're drilling 58,000 meters. So even more, we're drilling in 1 year more than the historic drilling over 10 years. So, when you drill, you have large drill programs and you have good infrastructure, that leads to low cost of discovery. And, we're talking about near surface mineralization primarily. So you're not drilling 500-meter deep drill holes. You're drilling 200-meter drill holes. We will get to drilling those 500-meter holes, but right now we're focused on the near surface mineralization. So very cost effective. Discovery costs are low in Ghana in general, but especially on our project due to the good infrastructure.
Doug, the last question I have for you, just given your background with Newmarket, are you starting to see or putting the pieces together for like a real business strategy here down the line of producing cash flow and maybe becoming self-funding, down the road future exploration at Enchi?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, our job at Newcore is to make money for shareholders. That's the bottom line. And whether we do that through creating a resource and development project so valuable that someone else wants to own that, meaning acquire Newcore, or whether we advance the project to a feasibility level stage and put it in production, we'll do whatever it takes to maximize the value for shareholders, because we're all shareholders as well. So a multi-pronged attack, if someone wants to interrupt our path by acquiring Newcore, well, we'll listen to them. But right now, we're just on a track to create value for shareholders through the drill bit, and we think that opportunity is immense for our shareholders, and that's our focus.
All right, Doug. Well, I appreciate your time. It's a pleasure to speak with you and chat with you the first time you and I have talked, and I think there's a lot of value here for the listeners, so appreciate you coming on.
Trevor, thanks very much for having me and for your interest in Newcore. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's Doug Forster. He is the chairman for Newcore Gold. Again, they trade on the TSX Venture with NCAU and also on the OTCQX with NCAUF. That's going to wrap up our day here today on the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the news briefing. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Be well. The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decision.